Started. Thank you. Okay, so today we're here with Mark Hillegass, and he's going to tell us some about his music education experience, and I'll just let you take it from here.
Awesome. Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. So again, my name is Mark Hillegass. I have been teaching, this is going on my 12th year, so I just completed my 11th year. All of my teaching experiences come from the state of Texas. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, where I was born, and moved to Brunswick, spent pretty much my whole life, moved to Texas when I was 23, turning on 24. In fact, I got here on July 4th of that year that I moved here. So I started off teaching in El Paso, Texas, in a city called Anthony, Texas, in Texas. It's literally as far west as you can possibly go. That is exit zero for us. It is one of those unique cities, at least in Anthony, that you can have a foot on either side of the street, and you're in either Anthony, Texas, Anthony, New Mexico.
Wow.
So I taught there for 2 years. I was their head band director for high school and middle school. So I taught grades 6 to 12. So we had the 6th grade band, 7th, 8th grade band, the high school band. I started an after school jazz program that became a class. And then I started an after school choir that became a class as well. Just because for jazz and choir, when I was cleaning out the music library, I'd found some music, and I was like, hey, do we all have this once upon a time? And they're like, yeah, but we were told we were too Mexican to sing and play jazz. So I was like, yeah,
okay. Yeah.
this is not going to fly. So we're going to start all of this. Because I'm like, is there interest in both of these? And the girls were like, yeah, we can get choir kids like that. Yeah, sure enough, we had about 50.
Wow.
So that ended up being a very valuable thing to do, because one of my band kids, he was a percussionist, a pianist, guitar player, so he joined the choir too, and now he's a lead singer of a band with a record label. So I mean,
wow,
what a new choir can do, that sort of thing. So so I taught there for 2 years, and then I went to a school district called Bosqueville ISD, and that is basically, to make it easy for everybody, that is basically in Waco. It's kind of right next to it, but it's pretty much Waco. And so I was their head band director. I also got surprised, and I found out I was also teaching K through 5 general music. So I was in charge of K through 12 by myself, right? Surprise. So I did that, and then I was just a lot, and the pay was just awful. I'm not gonna lie, because I went from like 50K to, they originally wanted me at 35. I was like, just no way. They got me to 38, and I was like,
that, yeah, you're like, no.
For all that. So I was trying to get closer to the Metroplex here in Dallas, and so I took a job at a charter school that was brand new. It's called the International Leadership of Texas. So there I had an opportunity to start basically everything. So in our campus, so the way our charter works is we're now all over the state of Texas, which is weird to say when you're a district.
Yeah.
Explain that in competitions and it gets tricky. And so I was the first one to start our campus with a full-on middle school, high school band program, a full-on middle school, high school choir program, and then I got put in charge of the orchestra program. I also got signed up. Yes, I got signed up to teach and develop curriculum for a leadership course that I taught through high school. That was unique and cool, and I got to do it with a lady who came in. She first time ever teaching. She was really just in the fine arts world, and so they kind of like, hey, could be a full-time teacher, and she got paired up with me. So we got to do that together. And then I started a high school softball program and was their coach.
Wow.
Yeah, so 6-12.
Yes.
Everything.
Wow.
So I did that for 2 years. My wife found out she was pregnant, so to kind of step down from all of that, I went to Dallas ISD and was at a magnet school. Part magnet, part neighborhood. So the way the magnet worked with all the fine arts. So so the school was originally pre-K through 5. So the fine arts in our school, we started in the fourth grade, like you guys do up there in Ohio, because not many schools do this in Texas at all. Most schools start in sixth grade, but there's very few of us that start in fourth. And we could dive into why they tend to do that. But in our school, we taught in fourth grade orchestra, theater, dance, piano, art, and band. And then our school would eventually feed up to a middle school magnet, and then to one of either a public school, high school, or magnet of the high school. But our school eventually became a pre-K through 8 campus. So I was in charge of 4th through 8th grade orchestra. Originally interviewed for band, and they were asking me all sorts of orchestra questions in the midst of it. So I was just answering, and the principal was like, "Hey, would you like to teach orchestra?" So I'm like, "Why not?
Okay, I'll do it."
Yeah, it ended up being, when I got to the campus, all this stuff was in the middle of a room, and I was like, "What's the deal? Like, this is kind of odd." Here, the guy had a heart attack and died in the middle of May, that May prior. So I was just like, "Oh, would have been nice to know." But they put a brand new teacher in band, which I understand why now, and they had me in orchestra, so it worked really, really well for us. And then after that, we had just got back from UIL and got pulled into an emergency meeting. We were also heading to spring break too, but that's when COVID decided it was going to hit, and we all had no clue what that was going to be about. So after that school year, IO Texas got me back, and they started a virtual campus. So they brought me back to do middle school theater, middle school choir, K through 5 general music, and I was also going to train to become a principal and take over that one day.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was going to be unique, because for that charter, you don't have to have a master's. They have a leadership program they can put you through, which is great. And then the state of Texas was trying to pass a virtual bill, and we had, but it's grades 3 through 12 only. But then they realized K2 is the biggest clientele, and the reason we kind of left them off is just because it was mainly K1, honestly, was they were just hard to teach. They would just go rogue and go run around the room somewhere, house somewhere, and you would lose them. Like, it was hilarious, and poor parents were trying to navigate that. Second graders honestly weren't that bad at all. I didn't have too many issues out of them. So we amended it though here in the state, and so when you amend it, you have to re-vote, of course, and that's the night the Democrats walked out on us at like 11:54 p.m. And of course we hadn't voted on that thing yet, and so it died. So at that point, we pretty much got laid off, give or take. They were willing to save us if they could, and for me, it just wasn't gonna work. So there was a school in a nearby city that was a private school that has made a decision to go charter, or at least join an existing charter. So they brought me on to start a brand new 6 to 12 band program, a brand new 6 to 12 theater program, and I was also got kind of roped into starting at their high school softball team.
So 2 softball teams you just created.
Yeah, and a lot of that just extends because of the fact the kids knew I've been umpiring baseball and softball since I've been in 8th grade. There was a program where I grew up in Brunswick that one of my dad's friends started that is for youth umpire associations, and I grew up in that, and so they knew that, and so like, and I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, I'll do it.
Yeah, and then for this year, I'll be honest, this year was probably the worst year of my career. Just in terms of the way everything was falling, the kids were acting, mainly my 8th graders. My bands, my theaters were fine overall, but the charter was just very unstable, or at least our division of it. So I left, and I just got a new job in our city, because we were our daughter's starting pre-K here in a fine arts school in our city. So we were trying to find a job where preferably me, I could take her to school so my wife can maintain her schedule, because she goes like 6 to 3. And she was virtual for quite a while, and now they're going back in person, doing like a hybrid. So I'm trying to, because if she were to take her to school, she would go from like 8:30 to 5:30, and then the way home is just obnoxious.
Just a long day. Yes.
It's just a long day. So I got a job in our city here, and now I'll be full-time theater.
Wow, that will be
5 minutes away.
5 minutes away. There you go.
So one of my goals is to become a fine arts director.
Mhm.
And I have my theater certification
Yes.
because I got it for one of the schools and used it a couple times.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. And then outside of that, I'm a music composer. So
Wow. That's
yeah.
such a great background and starting up all these programs and,
Yes.
kind of changing routes now. So that's very interesting. I loved hearing about
Yeah. Yeah. I've had friends ask me, and we've had discussions about, are you a specialist? Anytime I've had an interview, I'm just like, no, I'm not a single specialist. It's
Mhm.
just not been my lifestyle, as it turns out.
Yeah.
My career, even though I've been teaching going on 12 years, I've literally had 6 years of band, 6 years of orchestra, 5 years of choir,
So it's
and
all
now
pretty
going
equal.
on. It's all pretty equal. So I'm not like a streamlined one,
Yeah.
one
It's not
subject.
one clear path. It's kind of all these.
No, which is fun, which
It
is
is
fun.
fun. And,
Um,
I think the way our licenses are designed now, it's kind of like that. It's like you should be able to, like, obviously everybody has their own niches and where they fit best.
mhm.
But that's really cool that you were able to do, you know, 6 years this, 6 years that, and kind of make it your own.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to thank my student teacher from Ohio for that because
Mhm.
it was a subject where him and his wife were running programs together, and he's just like, "All right, kid, here's what I do. All right, next day, it's all you."
Yeah.
And at first, I was just like, "Whoa, that's a lot," because I was in charge of basically, fifth grade, 12th to 12th grade. Um, but it's paid off. It's paid off because that's pretty much what I've had to do.
That's amazing. So, what advice do you have to new music educators about maybe what they should do?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. First of all, I wouldn't be scared by this great resignation. I know it's very overwhelming. It's very in our face right now, and it's happening. I wouldn't doubt worldwide, but we're at least hearing it within our own country.
Mhm.
Um, and some of it just has to do with change, right? This country has to change a lot of things, and it doesn't help that we've built a system around the workforce and we refuse to change it. I get why we do it, but it's causing its issues. um, and there's just a lot of politics involved, and the list can go on. I wouldn't be so much distracted by that. This is kind of an interesting opportunity right now as an educator because between people being scared of COVID, and I get it. We've had plenty of family members die. I understand that. But it's created some very interesting and big job opportunities. Ones that, quite frankly, probably wouldn't have happened yet, or at least for a while. I could see some of these people that have resigned sitting there for a couple more years and then finally be like, okay, I'm going to resign and retire.
Yes.
So number one, capitalize on that. I think that's really important, and it's a good opportunity to do it. So one of my biggest advices I give to anybody that I can, that's a music educator especially, is to go where the job is. I've had a lot of friends that they graduated with music degrees and do not use them to this day. And that is just because they geographically limited themselves to where they're going to end up, right? Because they're like, I want to be in this particular city within these particular schools. And the fact is, that's just not reality, right? And I knew, first of all, I'm just a travel person. I like to travel. Discovered that really early. My parents discovered that really early. Probably didn't like it, but they embraced it.
They're like, yeah, stay in Ohio.
I was applying. I was trying. I had people fighting to get me in Ohio. It just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Which is always interesting because Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, they usually produce the most amount of teachers. But what's interesting is they don't maintain them and they don't keep them, and they all flock. So I was applying worldwide. I had a job offer in Dublin, Ireland, just due to a college connection. And that just ended up not happening because they wanted me to have a passport in 2 weeks, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
And then they kept shrinking that. Yeah, that would have been fantastic, right? I was interviewing to be teaching in Alaska So that state's pretty crazy because you have to, at least when I did it, this could change.
Mhm.
I had to interview 5 rounds just to be able to talk to the districts. So that
Wow.
was like going through the state, and I remember my last interview, they were like, hey, make sure you have a computer printer, piano by you. They randomly sent me this version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I had to print it, sing it, sight read it, all in front of them. It was crazy.
Wow.
And then, I got to talk to them. And at the same time, I remember having an offer somewhere in Anchorage, Alaska. But then I had a job offer for my first time here in Texas.
Yes.
And the person at the time, because I was a parts delivery guy at the time, the principal called my house and not my phone. And so my mom answered and pretty much vetted out my principal for 2 hours. I didn't know until I got home and she told me about it. She's like, yeah, you're gonna get a call from HR soon, and probably the principal about the job.
Oh my
God! But I was
God.
like, my dad and I were carpooling too because we worked very
Okay,
close.
Mom.
Yeah, and so my dad, and sure enough, they called and they're like, oh, it's $50K for your first job, and I was like, okay, sign me up, let's go. So I'm like, oh, I can't touch that. So my dad was like, did you just accept the job? He's driving at the same time trying to listen to all this, and I was like, yeah, I did. He goes, does your mom know? I said, apparently she vetted out the principal.
Yeah, apparently.
So, yeah. But you go where the job is, because that's the only way you're gonna get started. And even like, I remember, so my mom made me calculate everything. Because as a first year teacher, especially if you do marching band, it kind of sucks because you don't get paid until September. Even all the work you do in July.
All this work in July, August.
You don't get paid until mid-September or end of September, depending on some areas.
Yeah.
And so my mom made me calculate all this stuff. And I remember the night of, she realized that I miscalculated. This is why I'm not a math teacher, by the way. I miscalculated about $3,000. Now that's huge, right? And so my parents got into it that night. And my dad's not one to pull a plug, but he was ready to. And so my mom was just like, listen, the only way he's going to get started is if he takes this job. Yeah. We know this. And so she footed the bills for me on her credit cards, got me there. I paid her back. But yeah, you have to go where the job is. And also, not only that, don't, I'm mentoring someone right now and trying to beat this into them. They just don't listen. You can't just go expecting to be band only, orchestra only, choir only, because that's not reality. At least here in Texas, I don't know about up there anymore. It's super competitive. There's fewer jobs than there are people. Yep. And it's become a thing now where you really have to know somebody to get in. It's become more or less a thing, at least in the larger districts, where fine arts directors control everything. So if they don't like you, you don't get in. Doesn't matter about the principal. It's not one of those. Yeah, it's not one of those anymore. Hey, principal, let me interview you. Okay, he or she likes me. Now I'm in. They can bypass anything else.
Like that.
No. So you have to be prepared to teach anything. That could mean you're teaching band and choir at the same time, or some combination. You could be teaching band general music. Yep. You don't know, because quite frankly, it's good for you. It builds your resume, and it helps kind of make you a utility player, because people find that attractive, and you're more hireable and marketable if you can do all sorts of things than just being streamlined one. But that's kind of a cold reality I think people don't want to face, is that you may have to take something you don't like. And I think the other cold reality for people is that, they want these big power playing high school jobs with these big monster programs, and they think immediately out the gate, I'm going to get one of those. And why shouldn't I? Right. Yeah. And exactly. And then that's not a reality, right? What resume do you have sitting behind you, or experience sitting behind you, that says you're capable of holding up that program? Yes. So just be ready to come down to a reality of, you may be taking an elementary job teaching band, orchestra, choir. You may be doing some combination, or teaching junior high, or go find yourself a smaller district for sure. Because some of those smaller districts, you can get into that level, right? But these bigger districts with these high profile programs, unless you can pop in as an assistant, which is a good way to go, you can't just have that expectation, because that's pretty much saying like, hey, I'm just gonna use randomly Target for an example. Like, I'm gonna go be the CEO president of Target suddenly.
Yes.
Yeah, probably
Right
not.
away.
You're
Right out of school.
gonna be
Yeah.
right. You're probably gonna be cashier
Work your way.
or
Yeah.
retrieving carts in the hot sun like the rest of us. Like that's just, that's the cold reality. I think people just need to keep in mind is that go where that job is. Be prepared to take anything but probably what you really focused on,
Yes.
because that's just kind of what the needs are right now. And don't expect to make it to the top immediately. You gotta prove that you can do that and you can handle it. That's really my biggest advice to anyone starting out, is be ready for that.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time and your advice, and I wish you luck on your new job, and
Thank you.
I'm sure that will be a really fun experience for you. So thank you for joining today, and I really appreciate your time and all your advice and everything. So thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Enjoy your summer.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.